Okay, we're now live.
Thank you very much, Alison. So welcome everybody to our SACRE meeting, and it's just super that so many of us have joined together today. I'm going to go through and just see who's here. I know that some people are arriving late to the meeting and we have apologies later on. So I shall begin with Group A. Sarah Coote.
Yes, I'm here.
Thank you. Sheikh Fazl Abbastatu.
Yes, I'm present.
Thank you. Reverend Ray Goddess. Okay. Samuel Hilsenrath. Elizabeth Jenkinson.
Yes, I'm here. Can you see me? I can't tell if my camera's on or not.
Yes, I can see you.
Thank you.
Yeah. Christine McMillan.
Yes, I'm.
Thank you. Jaswant Singh Digpa. Barbara Spiegelhalter. Hello, Barbara. Pastor Chris Thomas. Hello, Pastor Chris.
Yeah, I'm here.
Thank you. Jeff Wheeler.
Hello.
Hello there, Jeff. I know that Jane Kelly will be joining us later in the meeting. Kari Lang. Hello, Kari.
Yep, I'm here.
Rachel Osborne.
Hello, yes, I'm here. I'm so sorry, I don't seem to be able to turn my video on, but I am here.
Super, that's brilliant. You able to raise a hand in the meeting though?
I can, yes, yeah.
Oh, that's great. And then moving on to Group D. Have we got Councillor Ryan Brent with us today? Taki Jaffa.
Present.
Thank you. And our co-opted representatives, Jessie Wilson. Their hand is up. Thank you, Jessie. And how about Hayden Wade? Might be with us.
He wasn't able to attend virtually because of a safeguarding issue.
That's absolutely fine. Okay, thank you. Thank you very much, everybody, and we'll keep our eyes open for anybody who arrives late to our meeting. And we're going to move on to item 2 and to a quiet reflection led by Kari. Thank you so much, Kari. Over to you.
Okay, can I just check you can all hear me okay? Yep, brilliant. So I'm just going to say a few words really to get us all thinking about what the impact of the last 2 or 3 years has had on our younger people. As you'll know, I work in a sixth form college, so I can't speak for everyone, but I just feel it's such a crucial time coming to study your A-levels, your level 3 courses for your socialisation, discovery, who you are, getting to know other people. And I just still get my head around the fact that these young people were kind of forced to be stuck indoors for 2 years with limited contact and socialisation. And the impact's it's just been huge, it's significant. I'm going to end with something really positive though, that's actually really sort of bittersweet. I was talking to a student literally last week who said, you know, I only started to enjoy college and get to know people in February this year. Now I love it, but I'm leaving this month. So there you go, I'll end there.
Thank you so much. That was really thought-provoking, and thank you for drawing to our attention what you've noticed. It's really important. So moving on to item 3, apologies for absence. I have apologies from Sam Bowen, Debbie Lucas, Helen Reeder, and Councillor Tom Coles. Moving on to item 4, declaration of members' interests. I'd like to invite anybody who might need to declare. Yes, please, Elizabeth.
Yeah, it's my usual. I'm a judge for West Hill, which gives grants to SACREs. So
Thank you. Moving on to item 5, minutes of the previous meeting held on the 9th of March 2022. The minutes of the previous meeting are attached to your papers. Are you happy, members of SACRE, to approve these minutes? Please do speak, Jeff. Do you want to unmute?
I'm happy to accept and that they are correct.
Thank you.
I beg your pardon. I had trouble turning the sound on. I thought putting my hand on was a good way to vote yes.
I know, it's just me. That is a good way to vote. If everybody wants to raise a hand, that makes it easier, doesn't it? Okay, SACRE, are you happy to resolve to agree the minutes are correct, a record of that meeting? Yes, I think it's a unanimous yes. Thank you very much. Item 6, matters arising from the minutes. Are there any matters arising that you have noticed that you would like to pick up? I have 2 suggestions. One is minute 9, monitoring group report, actions regarding the directory of places of worship and its current status. And I can tell you now that the directory of worship is being collated by the City Council and will be soon going live. We've had lots of responses across the city, and some of the responses I've had to go and find myself. So go and visit various places of worship to get that together. Minute number 11 from those notes, actions relating to Group A membership of REC and the SACRE conference. And they will be covered in the agenda item 11. Does anybody have anything else they need to add? Patricia, please do.
It's a small thing, but if my title is going to be used in minutes title doctor to the title nurse, and I saw it somewhere. I've only just noticed this. I've looked through these people.
Okay.
Recommendation.
That's an important thing. You have to get titles right.
Well, I'd rather not have one at all, but if there was going to be one, then
okay,
better to use that one. I'll forward on the bit.
Yes, please do, and we'll make sure that's correct for you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, then moving on to item 7, membership updates. Over to you, Pad.
Just into the it's very nicely set out on the
yes, it's beautiful.
So if we can see the the current membership. So the main thing is that we have to reappoint. And I think everybody has been approached by Karen.
That's correct. Yes.
Yep, that's correct.
We're really looking for a formal reappointment. There's a little bit. Point number 3 is the background to SACRE and its membership, which I think everybody here will be familiar with. We are still seeking representation from the Roman Catholic Diocese, and we are also still seeking a Buddhist and Hindu representative. So these are being sought. I think an additional teacher representative we're working on as well. So I think we've got 2 hands up, I'm assuming. I'll hand back to Sam.
Okay, that's fine. Yes, thank you. Pastor Chris, your hand's next.
Yes, I'm having difficulty hearing Patricia, so it got a bit better as you closed what you were saying about the Buddhist and Hindu representatives and so on, but I missed some of what you said earlier.
Okay, I can simply say that again, that the main part of this report is to note the requirement that for reappointment, as per the report, we need to reappoint. I also think this has to do with the cycle of things in Portsmouth City Council, but so I think the main thing we're doing is seeking to do that, to appoint, as well as noting, as per the report, that we are still seeking some representatives for gaps that we have on SACRE. I just will say that it's really important that we keep Group A populated in exactly the way that we say we want to. That's in particular, and it's always something, you know, by the nature of it being such a large group in a way, but there's always people who are moving on and different things. So,
yes.
But the main thing, and then I'll hand back to Sam, is the agreement to reappoint these people.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes, we'll look out for a Roman Catholic representative, and I have possibly a Buddhist representative in the city that I might have found, so I will let you know. I have a feeling that, Christine, you're going to answer my question, as are you, Sheikh Fazl. So let's start with Christine first, please.
I'm not sure what your question was going to be. I was going to say that I did get the email from Karen asking if I was willing to stay a representative, but it went straight into my spam folder, and I'm guilty of not checking it regularly. So if you haven't had responses from some people, it may be that it's because they didn't get it in their inbox.
And are you happy to continue?
Yes, I am.
Brilliant. That was my question. Excellent. And the next one, Sheikh Fazl, your hand is up.
Yeah, I think I seem to have missed this email as such. Probably I might try and check up the junk email later on. But would it be okay for me to confirm that I'm happy to continue representing to be part of the SACRE team?
Yes, please. Thank you so much. That's brilliant.
That's the first point. And the second point, if I may ask, I remember previously we used to have representative from the Jamia Mosque, a gentleman by the name of Sayyid Amin Haq, if I recall correctly.
Yes.
And I noticed that representation from the mosques in Portsmouth is not included. Is there any way we are able to reach out to them to be able to be part?
Yes, I'm on the Interfaith Committee. We had a meeting a couple of weeks ago, and for whatever reasons, none of the mosques in the city were able to attend. However, I've still got to go and take places of worship form to those locations, to the city centre and to Jami. So I will ask them. Okay.
Thank you very much. Yeah, thank you very much.
You're welcome. No, it was, it's a really good point. Thank you for that. Okay, so on the basis of these people in our list, so for Group A, we've got Elizabeth Jenkinson, Sheikh Fazl, and Christine Macmillan to be reappointed. And in Group B, we have got Sue Bowen, myself and Jane Kelly. In Group C, we have Helen Reader and Rachel Osborne, and everybody has agreed to be reappointed. Is SACRE happy to resolve to reappoint these people? Lots of nodding. Thank you, that's lovely. So all are duly reappointed. Thank you very much for that. Brilliant. Moving on to item 8, brief update or notification of items to be brought to a future meeting. Yes, go girl.
I'm wondering if I might just say one further thing regarding.
Oh, please do. Sorry.
Sam, thank you so much. I think it will have come to your attention that we don't have any councillors with us here this afternoon, and I thought it would be useful. I don't know if Karen, if you could update us, our clerk, Karen Martin, update us on the situation with regard to the reappointment of councillors to SACRE.
Yes, I believe that the both Councillor Coles and Brent are stepping down, and will be the replacements are being sought. In fact, the cabinet meeting where those appointments will be made and where Taki Jeffer's reappointment will be confirmed is now taking place on the 21st of June. It's been brought forward, I believe, and there will be up to 3 councillors appointed at that meeting, we hope.
Thank you very much. That's really good news.
And in addition to Mr. Jeffer.
Yes. Thank you.
Yeah, traditionally in the past there have been 2 councillors and 2 other appointees, and people will remember Maria Coles, a long-standing member of this SACRE, who I'm sure we would want to thank very much for her long service on this SACRE. So that's the situation, that we won't know those people who are appointed until later. Perhaps could we minute this, what I've just said about Maria Coles, a long-standing, very much appreciated, contributing a tremendous amount to Portsmouth SACRE because of her wisdom and local knowledge of the local community. Yeah, it would be nice to minute that, and perhaps to send the minute to Maria. Yeah, if anybody wants to add anything there too.
Yes, thank you.
I agree.
Please do.
I've worked with Maria for many, many years, and she's been part of the community network team that was there before many, many moons ago, and she has always served the community very well.
Thank you. And just to update you, I saw her a couple of months ago in Domino's pizza shop just around the corner, and so had that lovely moment to say hello, how are you? She has been poorly, she's moved house, but she's doing well in her new place. And just so that you know, I've seen her, and I've talked to her, and all is well. Thank you.
She was also there at the May making.
Oh, was she? Good.
And I had a chance to chat to her for quite some time.
Oh.
But she's on the mend, hopefully.
Yes, indeed, indeed. Oh, that's good.
Absolutely. We send SACRE's fond regards, something like that.
Yes, yes, definitely. Elizabeth?
Yes, this isn't really the right time to say it, but it's sort of related, so I thought I would. I was going to raise the point of the thing that SACRE is doing on the 29th of June, which is the training. It's so you've joined your local SACRE, or something is the title, something like that. And I'm just wondering, since the time is kind of close, if we can be sure that if there are new members, from the council or any new members, that they can be notified about that as soon as possible so that they can join in.
Okay, thank you. Yes, I'm sure we can send out the information about that.
Yeah, I think in the past it's been mentioned at this meeting that, in fact, that training is quite useful for even long-standing members of SACRE. So to make it easy, I'll send you the link to everybody.
Thank you. They are really good training sessions, and then you get to meet others from SACREs across the country, which can be really useful for sharing wisdom and stealing ideas from one another. Okay, so moving on to item 8, Pat's report. Sorry, to plan to mention the draft code of conduct. Sorry, Pat, for SACRE. Do you want to say anything about that?
It's probably worthwhile mentioning something then. So in other SACREs that I work closely with, neighbouring authorities, if a SACRE member goes into a school, they would always go with a professional advisor who is on the Salisbury grade in terms of inspection advisory. So this gives a certain status, if you like, in relation to education. We're mindful sometimes SACRE members go into schools and make it clear to a school that they're a member of SACRE. Now, sometimes SACRE members go into schools in another capacity, and that's fine. But what we wanted to make clear, and we'll bring this to another meeting, the next meeting, is that if a SACRE member is going into a school and says they are a member of SACRE, because of they're not being a professional RE advisor, if you like, in the authority, we need to make sure that SACRE has a code of conduct. I'm sure we will all conduct ourselves perfectly well, but if we go, there's a reputational matter at work, I suppose we could say, both for the SACRE and possibly for the authority. Probably for the authority if the SACRE was compromised in any way. So we just think we will bring this to the future meeting, modelled on a document that SACRE has, and that we know Karen has experience of in another authority, our clerk has experience of in another authority that's in a similar situation to this one. So that's just advance notice of something and the reasoning for it that we would expect. I don't think it's going to be anything outrageous. We would expect SACRE members, were they to make a visit to a school on behalf of SACRE, that they just make it clear. It's about keeping boundaries clear and identities clear when we're there for SACRE and when we might be there for I don't know what other reason we might be there.
No, I think if we are going to go for SACRE, we should be doing it in a joined up way, so the school's clear as to what our purpose and intention is, really. Yeah.
And I think this is something that I'm hoping that Debbie and as Jessie it joins up the dots, if you like, for the authority.
Yeah.
Obviously, this is partly to do with it's a funding issue. So occasionally, and that's all I need to say on that. Does that sum it up, Karen, as well, from your point of view? Yeah, lovely. Thank you.
Brilliant. Thank you. So we'll talk about that at our next meeting, and I'm sure you'll find other issues and thoughts you might want to add to the code of conduct as well. Did anybody else want to say anything about that? Okay, I'm going to take silence as no. Let's move on to item 9. That's the monitoring group report.
Report. So, as you know, we have an opportunity to convene a small monitoring group meeting ahead of this meeting with a member of each group, and we have an opportunity to look at things in a full SACRE meeting. It's very important that we don't mention the names of particular schools, for example, and that's a reason for having a meeting, if you like, outside of this meeting to scrutinise. Because one of the key responsibilities of SACRE is to monitor the effectiveness of the locally agreed syllabus. Karen, would I be able to share my screen? It might be just quite nice to take a look at this a little bit more slowly. I should be able to. So I'll do that for this particular report. There we go. Yeah. So as you can see here, we've got, I'm sure you've all got this in open in front of you, but just in case you haven't, but the point number 1 is the
Patricia, if you zoom in, sorry, Patricia, if you zoom in a little bit, it'll be easier for us all to read. Thank you very much.
How's that? That looks better.
Yes. Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much for that. These are the things that we considered, and obviously we would like to recommend that you not only accept the report, also that there is a little bit of action as a result of this meeting, and that is that we would like to ask people to volunteer to monitor some of the websites. And I think the way forward is for people to indicate they're willing to be part of this. I'll explain more what this would involve after the meeting to our clerk and to our chair, and also possibly to Debbie Anderson, and we can take this forward. So we met, as you can see, and we can see who was in attendance. A key thing that we discussed at this meeting was the GCSE Religious Studies examinations that had taken place this summer. As we were meeting, we were in between the 2 papers. It's been a testing time, as you can imagine, and I think Carrie's opening thoughts alerted us to this, because of course the students that are just leaving year 13 at the moment, 6th form, as well as who are currently in year 12 in our 6th form college, they did not sit public exams. The grades they were given was on the basis of teacher assessments. Now, it might be interesting to sort of hear a discussion about that, about how that has impacted the youngsters themselves. I'm sure they worked very, very hard. In some ways wasn't any difference, but in talking to teachers and young people this year, where they've had to sit a public exam again, I'm sure that the youngsters had mixed feelings. Some of them who were really ready to sit an exam in an examining hall again, and others that might have thought, well, why couldn't I just work and do things in the same way that had happened for the last couple of years. However, this year we have returned to public exams. They had a discussion about whether it was advantageous or not in that the government, Ofqual, had allowed some alteration to the amount of material studied in different subjects. In religious studies, the amount of material that the children, the young people, were to be relieved of studying at GCSE was very limited, and many of the teachers that I spoke to thought that it was going to be important to teach it all anyway, or they already had taught it all anyway. But that's the main thing. I don't know if I could take this moment by moment. Have people got any questions about the GCSE that they would like to ask me?
Do you think there's an issue around significant gaps of learning where students and young people didn't do the work at home during lockdown?
I think for sure for some schools that will have been something they needed to attend to, particularly if, and this is true for many schools, the GCSE is a 2-year course. So if you think about it, they, in 2 years ago, they may indeed have missed during the second lockdown some material. And of course, some students would have had families at home that were encouraging them to do all the online work, and other students wouldn't have been having the same motivation from home. So teachers have had to be very, very mindful and audit what has been missed or any elements that needed extra recapping for the students. Where there's been a 3-year Key Stage 3, so where children have studying GCSE over 3 years, if you think back, this year's cohort would have been in Year 9 during the first lockdown in 2020, when, to be honest, in Year 9, very little attention was given to those students from a government's point of view. We were rolling out computers in a very slow way, so probably they missed the best part of a term. It just depends, but every school context is different. But it's been really important for teachers to teach everything really, really, and I'm sure the best teachers have taught things terribly well, and also to boost students' confidence, to teach in such a way that doesn't undermine confidence but boosts their confidence. So we've got Carrie here, and maybe I can see Elizabeth would like to speak, but Sam, would it be interesting for us to hear Carrie's experience, the A-level experience?
Please, if you'd like to.
It's the same thing. Last year's would have been.
Here I come. Yeah, I'm back on. Yeah, it's been interesting. Firstly, can I just say there is a spelling error on my name on the minute, so I don't know if because I have an I.
Yeah, I saw that. I didn't say it because I
Okay.
thought that's not right.
That's fine.
Yeah, there's been a massive impact. We've had a mixed bag of students arriving at the college to start A-levels because my year that are now taking their A-level exams, literally this week they've got their first exam. They were given tag grades from school, so they've never sat an exam before, and their first ever exam is an A-level, which is pretty tough. The first years that have just come in, some of them have said that they did absolutely nothing in lockdown, nothing at all, and they've been really struggling this year because, of course, certainly for some of the BTEC courses, they've had to sit January exams, and it's just been a massive learning curve for all of us, really. But we have noticed it just depends on the school they've come from, like you've said, Patricia, the family background. If they've had parents that have helped them out, it's got them to encourage. Some of them haven't even got a workspace. So I know students that they don't have any computer access at home, so they were going to places like McDonald's to log on, but of course in lockdown that was all shut. So we had students with just literally 1 gig on their mobile phone to log into lessons and things. So it's been a weird one.
Thank you. That's really helpful. Elizabeth.
Yeah, I'm just wondering, I know that I think both GCSE papers have been taken or sat now, and I'm just wondering if there's any anecdotal reaction from the teachers, what they thought, what the students thought. And I'm particularly interested if any of I'm talking about GCSE now, I'm wondering if they felt that the material that they didn't need to know, in fact, they did. Because I think I read that somewhere that some people felt there was some confusion about in what context they needed to know certain things.
Yeah, I'm sure. Thank you. Kari again.
In response to that, hang on, I'm just working out how to get rid of the hand now. In response to that, I'm actually marking on their GCSE. So I do the GCSE and the A-levels. My A-level starts in about 3 weeks' time. But with the GCSE, as far as we can see with the AQA board and OCR, it's been absolutely fine. There's not been but you are right, there have been some slight horror stories in the media, I think, with physics paper and a biology paper. But as far as I'm aware with the RE paper, it's been absolutely fine. I've just got to say this because I am in the middle of marking. The standard is excellent, really. Considering what these kids have been through, I was expecting it, seriously, this is terrible, I was expecting it to be a bit of a disaster, but the standard of the writing is pretty impressive.
Thank
Positive.
you.
Okay.
That's exciting, really. It shows you just how hard they've had to work, doesn't it? Jeff.
Yes, I'd just like to clarify something. You said, Patricia, you said that a lot of the schools had taught the full syllabus anyway, which is great. But in the document, it implies that unless they did that, they couldn't get the highest grades. Is that the case?
Well, it's kind of interesting. We don't know whether that actually is the case, but on the conversations that I'd prior to the exam appearing, the conversations I'd had with teachers who I know traditionally get very, very good grades with their GCSE groups, they felt that even though pieces of knowledge had been taken out, that on other papers, it would be really helpful for them to have this knowledge in order to augment and give the best answer possibly. That sometimes pieces of knowledge that had been taken out actually were really critical to a bigger understanding of another area. That's all I wanted to say. So they taught it anyway. And yes, the thing is that, again, Kari's an examiner there, which is really important, but that what we think is that what had actually been removed from the GCSE religious studies was very little compared to some other subjects anyway. But please, Kari, you're examining, so it'd be good to hear.
Once again, the bits that have been removed, it wasn't necessarily that they weren't to be taught. It was just that they weren't going to be on that paper. And we've had the same with the A-level, is that there's been sections removed, GCSE's been the same, but that it's just the same to make it easier for the students knowing what they have to do for that particular paper. And I think that's where sometimes teachers got a bit confused, because I think they thought, oh, hey, I just don't have to bother teaching that at all, when actually that wasn't really ever the intention. So the idea was to give them the knowledge where possible, but just to reassure them that actually the exam, that paper wasn't going to have the questions on it. But you're right, Patricia, there has been a bit of confusion over it. I mean, I certainly know in history there were certain bits taken out of the syllabus, but they needed that crucial information for the other paper. And I'm in the same with the A-level. There's been certain sections taken out of the philosophy and ethics paper, but they absolutely needed it for the synoptic paper at the end. So we've had to teach the whole lot.
Understand. Yeah, I mean, I see the point about giving them the whole picture helps with the bit that they have to be examined on. Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, we will all be very interested to see whether the results pan out in the way the teachers have anticipated at the end of it, and whether the examiners have been given instructions that have been fully communicated to teachers prior. There's a lot of unknown, but we'll look forward to, we'll all be hanging on our colleagues' words, and and obviously Kari's got students there, and at the next SACRE meeting we'll be hearing more things on this. Yeah.
Yes, thank you. That's really good insight into the reality of what's happening, and it's good to hear the stories and the truth, and so we can take that with us.
I mean, there's one other thing that is worth just mentioning to keep SACRE informed, is that in the usual way of things, usually examination specifications have been reviewed and revised around about every 5 years. Now we are about on that 5 years for the GCSE now, but of course 2 of those years have not been usual years. So there's been no particular, although the syllabus has been taught. So in the RE world nationally, we're interested, keeping our ears to the ground and also prompting the conversation really, is like, what are the expectations of the review of this particular GCSE and presumably A-level specifications. But so let's watch this space on that front. And then the next item here is about the monitoring of the school's website. So in reality, we have very little to go on to really find out. SACRE has very little to go on in order to be certain or even to have any sort of an idea of how well the agreed syllabus is being implemented. Ofsted reports, as you'll see when I mentioned later, Ofsted reports, even where there's been a deep dive for RE, which is very rare, well, it's unusual, you could say. Even if there is a deep dive for RE, this is not a subject inspection, and there would be a very light touch mention of it in the report that is put into the public domain. And all that SACRE has to go on is to look at the reports of Ofsted visits that are available in the public domain. So we've been trying to think creatively. The monitoring group has been thinking creatively, and one way will be to monitor the websites. And Debbie Anderson, our local authority officer who's here with us, has put together a simple sort of criteria, and what we would like to do is to bring this to the SACRE meeting properly in the autumn. But we're also thinking that we could ask now for some people who would be willing to be volunteers to take a small cluster, perhaps 4 or 5 schools, perhaps less, even one local authority primary school in the first instance, and take a look at their website and see, can you find what they're mentioning about RE? Are they mentioning living difference? And again, Debbie's worked up a simple criteria list, and then would meet at the monitoring group meeting. Maybe we'll have a simple document. This is the name of the school, we've noted these things. And it would give SACRE then, if you like, something to go back to the school, or perhaps the chair of SACRE to write to the school and say, we've noticed, or it could be, we'd like to congratulate you on the provision for RE that we can observe in your, well, from your website, or the other to say, perhaps we've noticed that you're not mentioning living difference, for example. So I think that's all that probably to say on that right now, except if you would be interested or willing, it doesn't mean you don't have to move. It's just a matter of using these criteria to observe the website and to write this up in such a way as we will determine. Communicate that so that our chair can then correspond with the head. Is Debbie, maybe Debbie Anderson could come on mic, and have I captured pretty much what was in our mind?
Yes, I mean, what I did do was write a sort of statement so that every school of our LA maintained schools could at least know what clearly they could say about teaching the curriculum. Obviously, for religious education, they still have to do their own curriculum design, but with that reference to the agreed syllabus. So they've got that clear statement that they can use, they can adapt it, they can amend it, but for some schools that lack the confidence in knowing what to say, at least they've got a framework of something to say. So we can start with that as a basis. Is that on their websites? And then what further do they mention about living difference, or how they've designed their own religious education using the agreed syllabus? And what they're saying about their curriculum design, their intention, and how they're implementing it. So yes, we can. It is a bit of a crude tool, but it is a way that the monitoring group can do its work.
That's really good. Thank you very much.
So the next point was to share about the opportunities that we're able to create for teachers. The primary network still takes place. There is a secondary network meeting that I run that is virtual, that is open to Portsmouth schools to attend. And we will be inviting all Portsmouth schools, primary and secondary, if they would like to attend a face-to-face cross-phase conference that will be taking place. I realise there's a typo there. Taking place on the 12th of October. That's in a location yet to be determined, but we've just settled on the price, so the marketing begins in earnest tomorrow and the bookings will open this week. I can see there's somebody's got their hand up there. So.
Pastor Chris, would you like to speak, Pastor Chris?
Yes, sorry, I may have missed something. I'd be quite interested in perhaps helping the monitoring group with the website thing. Did you say how?
Yes, I can just recap that. I think the best thing is to email our clerk, Karen Martin, and our chair, Sam Douglas, and copy me in. I'm happy to follow that up, obviously.
Brilliant. Yep, that's super. Thanks.
I think the first step is to get an indication of who would be willing to volunteer to help with this, and then we can work out how many.
Yeah.
Even if you how many websites, and so it's step by step with this. And of course, we have said to schools we don't expect them to have this fully in place until September, so we wouldn't be starting the monitoring until the autumn anyway. So, but we wanted to bring it to this meeting to get ahead.
Thank you.
Lovely. Other sources of evidence of effectiveness, and I've mentioned about the Ofsted inspection reports, and something about what the deep dives are. They're not subject to inspections, but they are part of the methodology that Ofsted are using to check curriculum. In light of the last 3 years, Ofsted have got a renewed interest in subjects and curriculum making rather than only achievement. But during this period, there were no local authority schools Ofsted reports that mentioned RE. So, is that Elizabeth? I've noticed.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. I was going to put this in chat, but apparently chat is disabled for the meeting, so I will go ahead.
And now Elizabeth. You're frozen, Elizabeth.
Sorry?
We couldn't hear all of that as you
were.
Oh,
sorry. No, the chat is disabled. I was going to ask this on chat. I know that schools are encouraged to put a link to Living Difference 4 on their website. And speaking out of a total lack of technical knowledge, is it available somewhere, presumably on the City Council website or something, that they can do a link to?
it must be on the SACRE website.
It's on the SACRE pages.
Okay, so it's possible for a school to put a link on, because I can just see myself saying to this school, you know, or saying 18 schools that don't have it, and then you discover that they can't. So I just wanted to make sure it's possible.
That's a good point.
I just want to reiterate something, or to just double check something. In the if SACRE members are offering to check the school's website, we are not suggesting that individual SACRE members contact the school. Not suggesting that. That would be not appropriate. But we are going to use a kind of a pro forma to enable SACRE members to take a small group of schools to just take a look at their website and check it. And if there is a cause for concern raised, then obviously that will be double checked. And then a letter we anticipate would go from the chair of SACRE with a sort of formal, much more formal arrangement. So it's very important. Obviously, this is about the credibility and reputation of SACRE. But it's also recognising the reality of the difficulty of monitoring the effectiveness of the syllabus when there is no mention in Ofsted reports anymore. And the website is one way to do it. So we need to have a few checks and balances in the process, I think.
Jeff?
Just a thought, I'm wondering if this would also be an opportunity to monitor whether collective worship or of any form takes place in the school, which I believe is also a SACRE responsibility.
Approaching collective worship is a bit different because you'd have to go and visit to see it.
I didn't mean that, but I just thought maybe, you know, schools would mention that in their prospectus as well.
Oh. What do you think, Pat?
I'm actually going to suggest that that is undertaken as a separate task with something like, and this is something that my colleague Justine Ball undertakes very effectively in Hampshire, and she undertakes it quite simply through a kind of questionnaire that she sends to schools. And one of the reasons we began this wasn't so much to check that collective worship is taking place, although that is what happens. It does collect that information. We were also interested in withdrawals from collective worship, or also withdrawals from RE, but I would like to suggest that this is a separate task, and perhaps we ask Justine to support SACRE with that.
Yes.
And to bring that to a future meeting.
Yes.
But it's important, Chris. Jeff, you're right. It is the SACRE's responsibility.
The reason that I say that is that I've got two grandchildren that are just coming up to starting school in West Sussex, and I noticed that if any aspect of religion or collective worship was mentioned, it was not about syllabuses and things, but about an impression of how much the school valued the idea. So makes sense. That's looking at, you know, prospectuses aimed at 4-year-olds starting in September, but the prospectus online gave much more indication of how they valued it rather than how they taught it.
And that's another thing to look at, is the prospectus as well as what's. But they don't. Schools used to have a prospectus. It's not quite the same. The website for some schools serves as that, if you like.
I beg your pardon. I used the term loosely. I was thinking of what it said on the website.
Ah, yes. Okay.
Thank you. I suppose the process that we're looking at here is Debbie's going to devise a form. Those of us who agree to take up the work of looking at websites fill in the forms, and you send a copy for each of the schools you've looked at back to us. So that's the process, and you won't need to comment upon. It's literally fact finding, isn't it, Pat?
Yeah.
Pastor Chris. Your hand is raised.
Sorry, most schools would be academies. I'm wondering if why were we not looking at academies? I know they're not required to use the living difference or anything, but it might complete the snapshot to look at them as well.
My own hunch on that is that we should make a start with the local authority schools, because we have some kind of responsibility there. If we complete that task, SACRE could decide to look at the websites of academies, but we would have nothing to say about it. It would be an interesting piece of research, but regarding contacting them, that wouldn't be in our reach at all. Debbie, does that concur with what you?
Okay, thank you. That's clarified it.
So the last thing we were thinking about, the last couple of things here, firstly in relation to any appointments that or vacancies that we knew were available. There wasn't so much that we could say about that, except that the group of people that met to monitor did have a short discussion about the situation in relation to the training of teachers, which for the training of secondary RE teachers at the moment is causing some concern nationally because of the greatly reduced numbers of people who are coming forward for initial teacher education programs. It's down by about 50% nationally, and AURE, the Association of University Lecturers of RE, is taking a lead on this together with Cullum St Gabriel's Trust. One of the things that we think would really help would be the reinstatement of a bursary for training as an RE specialist teacher, which currently, if you want to train, do a PGCE, to be a specialist RE teacher, you have to find another, whatever it is, 9,500, whatever the current rate is, as well as your living arrangements. Or, of course, you can stake a student loan for that, another piece on top of your student loan that you've accumulated through your undergraduate degree. And I think at the moment there are a few people that are willing to take that risk. If you're part the way in looking at a career change, it's perhaps a very major decision to consider, you know, ceasing an income and taking a loan for this. And we have a hunch, although, you know, we couldn't be sure, but we have a hunch that were the bursary that has been available for some years, a few years, for RE would make a difference. But there are other things going on in initial teacher education that I will only mention if you're particularly interested. But it's a cause for concern nationally and something that is being taken up. But clearly where we don't have a constant flow, people are always retiring. And if you don't have a constant, that's the nature of things, you know, people get older. So if we don't have a constant flow of new teachers coming in at the other end, we then, after a short while, have a shortage of teachers. And that's a little difficult for RE, all subjects. And then the final item that we considered that Sam has mentioned a little bit, but Sam, this would be an opportunity to hand back to you if there's anything else to mention, but we discussed this at the monitoring group.
And that is about the places of worship directory that is being uploaded to Portsmouth City Council. I created a form. It's a very simple form. I took some of the fields of the form, so some of the boxes, from another SACRE in London. And it's really about asking the place of worship, their location, the name of their faith leader, contact information that they're happy to have in the public domain. So we've checked on that, email addresses, telephone numbers, how long a visit could be, any cost for the school, maximum capacity of children, preferred age groups, what aspect of their specific religion are they able to focus on? So that's looking at, you know, their own factual information behind their faith system. Description of their venue, number of rooms, special artifacts, any special features. And then I put in a box or two about our Living Difference 4 curriculum to kind of prime the places of worship to say that schools are looking into the golden threads of community, special, love and belonging. And even if the school isn't using Living Difference, that could get them to think about it when they look at the form online. You know, that might give them a way in to think more differently about how they connect and what they want to learn about the faith community. I've also added a box about pondering time. Is there anybody who would like to contribute further to the understanding of the school they're looking at? Say they're looking to go deeper in a specific aspect of Hinduism? Is there somebody from the temple who's got that expertise to take them further? And facilities available. Some places have kitchens and will provide refreshments, and some won't. Parking, you know, that's an issue in Portsmouth. Any directions about that, and any essential information a school needs to know. For the Gurdwara, they said, please don't bring tobacco on site, because that's an important part of honouring their place of worship. And preferred mode of address, how we actually ask and speak to people in different places really matters. Some people want to be formally spoken to with a formal name, and others are fine, they just say, my name's Sam, I don't mind, and that's all good. And so a number of places of worship have responded, at the moment broadly Christian, but I do have one from the Gurdwara, because I went there Sunday, not last Sunday, the week before, straight after Mass. I went over and said, hello, could you fill this in? And it was lovely. I sat up in their worship session for a bit too, and it was really lovely to experience being with them in their community. So that's good. The purpose of this directory is so that we can get schools excited about visiting, and they build their confidence to go and approach new places of worship that they haven't approached before. Yes, I do have some gaps still, so I will keep gleaning and meeting people and getting more forms filled in. Any questions? It's been quite exciting. Oh, Debbie, do go.
I was just going to say, would you like me to share my screen so that everybody can just have a brief look at this
yes,
first
please.
version?
Yes,
would
please.
that be helpful?
Yeah. Oh, here we go.
Okay, so can we see that?
Yes.
Yes. So there's the front cover. I didn't know Portsmouth SACRE had a logo, but if I liaise with Karen, we can put that on.
Stone logo that was on the
Yes, I can. Yeah, we can put that on. So we've got a contents page. Each one of the places is hyperlinked. So if you click on that one, it will take you straight to it. So if you went to North End Baptist, if I click on that one, it would take, and the hyperlinks are on the pages as well. So that's helpful. And then all of the hyperlinks are in there. You can see the information. There's the bit there, and there's a hyperlink to Living Difference 4 as well, built into it.
Yes,
and there are those for golden threads and how they've been responded to. If the business support team, they've taken out, if a place of worship hasn't put something in a box, just to make sure that no one is, each place of worship isn't any more than 2 sides, they've not included empty boxes. So you can see it's all sort of come together. It's all there.
Oh.
Version. Okay.
Yes, thank you.
Is that helpful? I just thought it might be helpful for everybody to have a look at it.
It's been quite a task. Yeah, it's brilliant.
And I think actually the best place for it to go is probably the Portsmouth Education Partnership website rather than the Portsmouth City Council one. And I can liaise to get that on fairly easily, because that's where schools would go for resources rather than the City Council one. And it will also be easier to keep it updated that way.
And it does mean that you won't get random people phoning because they found that document on the Portsmouth City Council. That's a really good idea. Christine.
Not about that, but going back to the beginning of the report, just for accuracy, can I point out that today is Tuesday, please?
Thank you. Thank you. Also, Taki.
Hi, I just wanted to say basically that is it possible that you could have a word with me afterwards about some of the communities who haven't taken on yet the form filling, because I might be able to assist with that.
That'd be lovely, Taki. Yes, please. We'll do that after the meeting. There will be
Okay.
a time once we finish recording to be able to chat, so that would be great.
Okay.
Thank you. Jane.
I just wanted to say well done. It's a really useful, the schools will find that so helpful, and it must have taken you such a long time to put it all together, but it's going to be a really good document, I think. So
Well, due to parish life, it's been a year in the making, but I'm
not
really glad
surprised.
you've got there. Thank you very much.
I particularly am impressed. The thing that's really struck me is the link to the syllabus, but also using the golden threads, inviting them to say what they think they could contribute in that is really going to be useful for schools. And I'm looking forward to receiving a copy of it as well. I think you will have a lot to support the other authorities that use Living Difference for in doing something similar, I would say.
Yes, it's the education that's the teacher in me saying, how can I make this easier?
Linking in together.
Yeah. Because actually, when you're in the classroom and you're in your own place and space, you can't think out of the box all the time. And so to read that and go, oh, I didn't think about that. That's a great idea, you know, just adds more and enriches more, doesn't it?
Definitely.
Okay, are you finished with your report, Pat?
Yes.
Thank you so very much for that. Has everybody finished commenting? Nobody left out. So SACRE, are you happy to resolve to note the findings of the monitoring group that were held at this meeting on the 17th of May 2022? Thumbs up, happy faces, nodding, thank you very much. Okay, let's move on to Portsmouth Council of Portsmouth Students, sorry, and SACRE. Move on to that bit next, please.
If I just open this up and then we bring Jessie online to speak more to this, I just want to say that I know because we're meeting virtually, it makes it very, very difficult for our young person the young representative on Portsmouth, the Council of Portsmouth Students, to actually be here. So that's tricky because of safeguarding issues and because of other commitments that Jessie's had today. So that's a shame because we weren't able to meet in a place, but we've chosen to meet virtually. But we were very, very, very pleased to welcome Jessie from Council of Portsmouth Students and Unlock onto Hampshire SACRE. And not only that, it very much links with the work that we've been doing on pondering time and in general trying to ensure that there are aspects of Living Difference 4 that really are advancing, you could say, a democratic approach to education. And yeah, so it may be, we'll hear from Jessie, but we hope that this is just the beginning and things sometimes take longer than we had hoped. But we should hear an update from Jessie about the functioning of COPS and about what this might mean for SACRE's relationship with COPS going forward into the next academic year. Is that okay if we just hand this to Jessie?
Hello, yes. So Hayden's role as Education Officer in COPS will be finishing soon, as the Council of Portsmouth Students has kind of wrapped up for the year with our Student Voice celebration taking place next month. So come the new academic year, we will do the process again of meeting the new lot of students from the different schools, and it's quite unfortunate with the timing of it all doesn't quite align with the SACRE meetings. So I know that the one in November is the 2nd of November, whereas our first summit, the first time that I meet them, won't be until the week after, and then we'll go through the executive elections in the November, so that by the time we've got somebody in state, which usually tends to be mid-December, they'll be in place, but then our next meeting isn't till the March. So yeah, it's just a bit out of sync, unfortunately. But it's just something I think that I'll take into account going forward, of how to look to engage further beyond these meetings, as it is just a shame that Hayden's not been able to come to. He was ill for the last one, and he's had COVID again, bless him. And then with this one, because I've spent the last hour travelling, I was on the call on my phone, and then got here back in time for this bit. So yeah, it's just a bit unfortunate, really.
Could you say thank you to Hayden, even though we haven't had the chance to meet him, particularly as, you know, in the background, we'd have really loved to have made that contact, and we've appreciated, you know, his interest.
Yeah, no problem. I'll pass that on. Thank you.
Pat.
So it's a matter of thinking how we can continue weaving this connection going forward. I'm mindful with this kind of thing. We have an intention, and we'd had an intention for several years, and then we knew of Jessie coming into post, so that meant we could bring our intention into a bit more of a reality. But these things often take longer than we had hoped, so it may be that we could think about what this engagement might look like. What might be the will of SACRE in the spring, knowing that we won't get representation from a young person at our autumn meeting, but maybe at SACRE's meeting in March, to think about what we might be looking at and getting some communication with that representative who comes into role, it sounds like, in December, or whether it may be that with Jessie, we can ask the clerk of SACRE to meet, and the chair and the vice chair to meet with Jessie and this new person ahead of time, and to sort of share something about the work of SACRE and what it is. In my ideal was that this would somehow lead towards some kind of youth SACRE conference. Somehow we were able to have a communications backwards and forwards between the young people in our secondary schools, particularly about how they feel about RE, whether it's going well, what it looks like when it's going well, thoughts about how it could be improved, are there particular topics that we need to, and that we can then communicate this with teachers. So we're going towards that. It's always my experience these things take longer than we had, but maybe could I propose that in the autumn, after our SACRE meeting, there was a meeting with the chair and the vice chair and Jessie, as soon as this person is in post, and just begins to also for SACRE to hear more about POPs and what the hopes of the young people are for the next academic year, because they're a new group. And it's what we find with had found with the Hampshire Youth Voices. Of course, people are part of this for a short time. Because they grow up. That's a good thing.
Yeah. That sounds like a really good idea, and we could see what practical thing comes out of that. They might suggest something that we haven't thought of. Is there anyone else who'd like to comment? Jessie, thank you as well for being an ambassador for them. I think it's brilliant.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you so much.
So, SACRE, are you resolved to note the updates from Jessie? Yeah, thumbs up, happy faces, smiles. Thank you very much. And so we've had national conferences. Some of us have attended mostly virtually. And so I'll hand over to Pat for the Religious Education Council conference update, please.
I do wonder, Sam, Chair, whether we should invite the two people that attended the SACRE conference on behalf of SACRE. Clearly there has been a report circulated, but it might be interesting for SACRE members to hear about the SACRE and the bigger issues that are being discussed nationally in SACRE
Yes, because they do overlap, I would imagine, particularly as the speakers on the SACRE conference represent those other bodies. Okay, Jane, would you like to go first? Can't hear you.
No, I'm just finding my notes.
Do you want me to go first whilst you find your
No,
notes?
I've got them.
Okay.
The first speaker was Ed Pawson, who is the deputy chair of the REC, the RE Council, and he was talking a lot about religion and worldviews, and really promoting the idea that we should be reframing the way we teach RE in schools and approaching it from a worldviews perspective. But he also spoke about how the RE Council is a voice for the world of RE and the campaigning that they're doing in areas like initial teacher training and restoring the bursary that Pat mentioned, which would maybe encourage more young people to consider RE teaching as a career path. He was talking about the national entitlement to RE, which is a statement. He was also sort of setting out nationally the expectations for the way RE should be taught. And he was very much suggesting that going forward, we would end up with a national curriculum for RE. And they were talking about the fact that when academisation takes place completely, which is the government's policy, that maybe the role of SACRE it'll definitely have to be reconsidered. But he was saying that if all schools are academies, they're going to be answerable to their MATs, to the Multi-Academy Trust, rather than to a local SACRE. And he was also implying that already the idea of having a locally agreed syllabus is becoming increasingly irrelevant, because a lot of local authorities will buy into a kind of a nationally recognised syllabus, and syllabi like Living Difference are being obviously taken up by London LEAs and people in other areas. So I think he's got a very different perspective, perhaps, from the perspective that we might have in Portsmouth and Hampshire. But it was interesting to hear his perspectives on what was happening. And then the second speaker was Richard Quay, who's the Ofsted, the HMI for RE. So I think you made some notes on his talk, didn't you, Sam? Yes, I did.
Really interesting, because everything was recorded across the day, but Richard, and now I might pronounce his name wrong, in which I apologise, Quay, he's the HMI Inspector for Religious Education, gave us a kind of off the record, but if we could scribble things down as quickly as possible if we wanted to make notes, comments, and it kind of, what he seemed to be framing was the direction of travel with religious education. He acknowledged the problems around non-specialist RE teachers and the tendency to try and teach to every single faith group represented in a school setting. But he acknowledged that this may not be the best way to teach RE, that we need to be making sure religious education has the different kinds of knowledge base. So excuse me if I lose you here, some of you I will keep. So knowledge base is that he was looking for, as he's examining and thinking about RE, comes from substantive knowledge, that's the key concepts, raw materials and aspects relating to faith. But also he talks about ways of knowing. And this is the kind of scholarly aspect. So teachers who train in RE, who go through university, are to get this rich scholarly base. So that's to sit in the library as well as to learn from places of worship and faiths and that dialogue, so that they know and understand these key concepts and have a sure foundation of what they're planning to teach. He acknowledged the difficulty of diversity of faith, that we need to be moving beyond stereotypes. And I've got a very old book on my desk here, you know, the world religions, as we used to say, and move into a place of acknowledging that you have different diverse understandings of faith within every faith community. For example, you can be a non-practicing Catholic. You can be a secular Jew. You could be a cultural Muslim. And you could be holding Christian values but never going to church. And what that does is it opens up the bigger picture to what religious life really looks like, and the kind of the myriad of ways of which we live out our faith and world views. So that be going beyond to the diversity of all faiths and none. So when it comes to teaching, he used the language, and I think this might be a heads up for where things are going, of collectively enough. And that means that looking at one faith group to be teaching in a way that there's enough to say that there's good expertise, rather than being a skimming stone over various types of teaching and not actually getting to the depth and the heart of what's happening as we're teaching RE. He came up with this lovely metaphor. Now, I know I've heard it before, but I can't remember. A colleague of his has formed a metaphor for how scholarly learning should be. And scholarly learning should be like, I don't know if you like to have coffee. I don't know if you like to have fresh filtered coffee, that smell of the aroma. And he suggests that universities where RE is being taught at a scholarly level should be like that cup where the coffee is percolating, or even a coffee percolator filter, whatever you like, that coffee machine where they've got the intense, neat, pure coffee. And then, so that means that the scholarly learning within the university for religious education should be based on fact, truth, and really substantial. And then from that place, the aroma that comes out. So as teachers go into schools, maybe they're going on teaching practice, or maybe they're going and taking up their first role in religious education, from the coffee hub, that beautiful aroma goes out into the community, into the schools. So there's a consistency of what's being taught. I thought that was such a lovely idea. So that what is taught in schools is based on scholarly knowledge, it's accurate, it's precise, and its subject matter is authentic. That's my rough overview. He talks about multi-religious and a multi-secular society, which is probably the truth of where we are now. But there's no need to be trying to teach and please everybody, but to do the best at scholarly knowledge.
And then the final keynote was an analysis of SACRE report. But to be honest, he had about 50 reports out of 150 plus SACREs, and he'd done his best, but his point was that there were very few common themes across, some SACREs were doing this, some were doing another. I'm not sure there's anything particularly helpful to report back to you on that. Some were using the official template, others were doing it in their own way. Yeah, so we spent a bit of time talking about SACRE reports. But there was definitely a concern about the role of SACRE going forward, and a feeling that we would become redundant in time. So that was a slightly gloomy note that they ended on.
There was a sense of a future that was being spoken about by the vice chair of the REC. His name's gone right out of my head. And he was saying about hubs and regional areas, but didn't say anything about being connected with City Council and having the role that we have now. Pastor Chris, you've got a question.
Just an observation, really. Just on your little summary there, for which thank you very much, Sam. There seems to be a contradiction, really, in what the guy was saying, in that he wants almost a sort of spread spectrum of everything from, you know, every conceivable form of belief or unbelief, and yet he wants to have a scholarly approach. And it just seems to me that that if religious education is going to be that, it needs to be more focused than his sort of spread spectrum.
I think that's my reporting, because he's saying that's my reporting. So I've not explained that very well. He's not saying a spread spectrum. He's saying, you know, know what you know. You know, if you've spent your time looking at one particular faith group, say Islam, and you're doing it well and it's scholarly and it's collectively good enough, that's all right, rather than trying to be trying to do everything, because you can't teach everything well. So thank you for that. I think that's my reporting.
Okay.
Anyone else? Okay, thank you. Thank you. Moving on, Pat, did you want to make comments about
the RE Council?
Yeah.
Yes. So the Religious Education Council is an umbrella organisation, a membership organisation. So various organisations. So the Church of England is a representative, and you may find that your religious body, if you're from Group A, is in its own right a member of the RE Council. It brings together, and that might be something interesting for you to find out. The RE Council is a membership organisation made up of people that have an interest in religious education. So the individual religious bodies have membership, as do some of the other bodies that represent teachers, represent university lecturers, and so on and so forth. So it's quite a varied and diverse organisation. But it was this organisation that was able to access the funding and commission the Commission on Religious Education. So this organisation, of which I'm a member of the board at the moment, is the body that is really pushing forward the view that we should change the name of this subject to religion and worldviews. The RE Council has also accessed further funding, which is in relation to drawing up some kind of a model syllabus, and they have been putting some, you'll be hearing more about this, as they have now commissioned and they'll be appointing people to draft up some model things on the basis of this. So there was a mention earlier on about the national entitlement. So one of the other recommendations in the Commission, the core report that if you've been a member of SACRE for a number of years, you will have heard about. Another recommendation was for a national entitlement for RE. And so there's been some further developments on that. And I think we just need to wait and see what the repercussions of this will be going forward. Another of the recommendations was a changing of the name of SACREs and a configuration to what they called local advisory networks. So I think what I'm just indicating to SACRE is that there are a number of new initiatives underway, and the RE Council is quite critically responsible for taking these things forward. So Ed Pawson, who was speaking at the SACRE conference, is the vice chair of the RE Council at the moment, and his talk would have been on behalf of the RE Council and mentioning some of those things. Yeah, so I think I've probably said enough on that at the moment. At the end of the meeting.
It seems that Ed is really championing this RE and worldviews. So
I think it's not so much that he personally is championing it. It is more that, to be fair, I agree with you, and also to add that because he is vice chair of RE Council, and the RE Council feels, I think, a particular responsibility to at least follow up the work of the Commission on RE report and to make sure that this is well considered before anything. But I think what we hear and what we know is that this move to suggesting that we might change the title of subject is not straightforward. It's not straightforward, and the deep considerations that are continuing in the RE world are continuing. Having said that, I think it's not unexpected. And if we look back in the history of this subject to the changes that were going on in the 1970s, and that was a move from what we would have broadly called confessional religious education. If you look at the agreed syllabus of the 1960s, they clearly just said we should be converting children to Christianity. Religious education was seen, even in the secular domain, as being about nurturing Christianity. Now, there was a recognition in the late 60s, early 70s that that wasn't tenable for all sorts of reasons. Not in the public space. So we had this shift to what we would call a world religions approach to RE. And that took a decade or more to happen. And I think what we're saying is that this was what was observed in the RE Council report, is that that also has problems in terms of stereotyping and essentializing what it is to be religious, and what we're wanting to move is to a more lived experience. So my last thing is to say, I think, is that Living Difference 4 perfectly well encapsulates the spirit of the Commission's intentions, I think. And I think that was what we felt when SACRE adopted the syllabus. Without changing the name, if you like, Living Difference 4 has already had the spirit of speaking about the lived experience for 15 years. So, yeah, that would be all I would want to say. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
And thank you to those people who've given the report of the SACRE meeting, which is really good.
Yeah. Pleasure. Now, South Central SACRE Hub meeting feedback. I'm just looking at my notes. Who else was there with me? You, Elizabeth, you would have been. Were you, Jane, were you with us as well? Did you want to report anything specific? Did you, and Elizabeth, did you notice anything?
Again, I'm just looking for my notes.
There was a lot, we talked a lot about diversity in different ways, didn't we? And the decolonization of Christianity, which is Justine's amazing piece of research. And using language of most, some, a few, and just really encouraging that we don't make great sweeping statements about what we're talking about with faith.
And then other things we talked about have already been mentioned in this meeting. So we were talking about the new GCSE exams, and but we've covered that already. We had a teacher from Sussex, who's put together what looks like a very good curriculum for students in years 10 and 11 who don't do RE as an exam subject, but still have to do compulsory RE. And she's put together some really interesting work for them, looking at ethical issues and current affairs and things that will be quite engaging, I think, for teenagers and young people. And I think she's hoping to disseminate that more widely.
Yeah,
So,
it's a really creative piece of work, wasn't it? Because she used a very clever device to plot the syllabus and what she was encouraging people to look at. And this, I can't remember what it was called. It's very clever. You could put YouTube clips.
It was a
in
Padlet, which is a piece of software that, yes.
Yeah. Very clever technology. I was really excited about that, because you could have, say, a bit of quotation about something specific relating to the curriculum she's doing, and then beside it, it would have a little clip that you could click on. It would take you to the YouTube example. So she's done all the hard work so that a teacher can just pick it up, easily access. They will know exactly what they've got to do, what they're going to teach, bit by bit, and I think it's very transferable, and I think she's probably going to have to watch out, because I think lots of people will steal it. But I think upon that,
yeah, I was going to say, am I remembering correctly that it was done in the expectation that it would not be a specialist teacher probably who taught it, and that therefore it needed to be really available for anyone?
Yeah, she was just making it easy for the teachers in the school where she's attached to pick things up. Yeah, it's really clever. And to build confidence, of course, because that material is trustworthy, just as, has been said in other ways in this meeting. Okay, any more things from that? I think that's covered it. Okay, SACRE, are you resolved to note the information received from the SACRE, from SACRE Hub, and from the REC? Thank you. Thumbs up, smiley faces, lots of nodding. Brilliant. Well, thank you all very much for this meeting. I need to just give a note of thanks to Pat. Now, I'm hoping I'm getting this right, because Karen and I had a conversation before the meeting to just do a note of thanks for you, to say thank you for your wisdom and all you have shared with SACRE. I need to ask this out loud so I get it right. I understand this could be your last meeting. Yeah. So just to, we will talk after the meeting's finished, so you can share and say thank you to Pat yourselves, but we just want to note in a minute, it's a thank you for all that you've done, for all you've shared with us, shown us, the difficult things you've brought to us, worldviews, changes in policy, and all that you did before I arrived. You've been here longer than me, since 2017. And we wish you all the best. Yes. And we will miss you. Yes, I can see applause. Applause.
We'll stay in contact.
Yes, please do.
I'm handing into good hands the professional advisory support of this SACRE. It won't surprise you. Maybe you can say who are we.
Would you like me to say?
Yes, I think SACRE would like to be reassured.
Yes, we are. Yes, it's not. And Pat's going to drop it and run away and leave us abandoned. No, no, no. So we have got Justine Ball joining us. She's the primary lead on RE in Hampshire. She sits on various committees, which I'm going to get wrong if I say them out loud now. Really able and capable. And I've worked with her in other ways. I'm working with her in the cathedral. We've put together a grant funding application for something on Christian diversity in the cathedral in the next few months coming up. So we've worked together, and she will be a great addition, and she will bring fresh ideas, new ideas, and will take us forward. But yeah, Pat, thank you very much.
Yeah, and I'll work with Justine over the summer to.
We're going to make a plan, aren't we, for transitioning, which is professionally good.
if I may.
Yes, please do.
Yeah, thank you. I must express my deep gratitude and appreciation to Dr. Hannam Patricia. I have had the privilege and honor to have worked with her for close to 12 years, if I recall correctly, since the time when I joined Hampshire SACRE. And I must say that from that time she was a very, very, what do you say, useful resource person to be able to give me the ropes to be able to walk in being an effective SACRE member. And she provided me very good space to be able to be an active participant in the various deliberations for both SACRE Hampshire and Portsmouth. And with this, I would like to express gratitude and appreciation to Dr. Hannam Patricia, and I wish her all the best, and I hope I'll have an opportunity to be able to meet her in person to be able to express this gratitude once again. Thank you very much, and I wish you all the best in what you plan to do, and may God bless you.
Thank you very much, Sheikh Fazl.
And this is something which I would like to say not only on behalf of myself, but on behalf of our community, Wessex Jamaat Al-Mahdi Center, for which Dr. Pett has had an opportunity to visit us a number of times and arrange for visits over there. So on behalf of my community, Wessex Jamaat also, we wish you all the best. And we look forward to having you visiting our center sometime. Whenever you have the opportunity, please feel free to visit us.
Wonderful.
We'll definitely take up that offer. Thank you.
There will be more opportunity to speak to Pat when the meeting's closed. So don't think that I'm stopping this moment, but let's just go to item 12. Date for next meeting. The following dates are the 2nd of November, the 28th of March and the 14th of June. We are looking for volunteers to host so that we can meet face to face, because I think it would be good. I know we talked about it last time, but I know that one of our attending people in the meeting today does have COVID, so we're just still being cautious. Kari.
Yeah, we can always offer you a venue up at, it's now officially the City of Portsmouth College. We've merged with Highbury, but we have a big conference room there, so we can always host it. So let me know, and what I can do is I'd book it, but I won't book anything until you let me know.
Okay, and any other offers as well, just send us emails and then we can plan it, yeah, together. That's great. Lovely. Also, the time clarification, because I had 4 o'clock in my diary, and then when I eventually found the link, I realised it was 4:30. What's the best time, just so that we get consistency? Kari, please.
Well, once again, this is purely selfish from me, but my lessons always finish at 4 o'clock, so ideally 4:30 for me. I mean, if it was a 4 o'clock meeting, I'd just have to finish early, but obviously selfishness, 4:30 please.
Oh, I think it's about the students really, isn't it? I think, shall we go for 4:30, because we do love having you in our meetings and it enables you to function in your role. Is everyone happy with that? I know I've just decided for us. Okay, I would like to thank you all. This meeting is now officially finished, so we'll wait for the sign to say the recording has stopped before we speak again. So just wait a moment. Alison, if you could stop recording, please.
Sorry, Sam, could somebody give me the dates of the next meetings again? I've got the 2nd of November. What are the others?
Just waiting on Alison and then I'll give them to you.
Thanks.